Good morning, I'm Jonathan. I'm here to talk about the book charkas, the box charkas we make, and what one can do with them. First of all, a little history lesson. Why is a charka in a box? Well, in the 1920s when Gandhi was trying to return the fiber industry back to India, which the colony had been taken away by the British Empire and put a lot of spinners and weavers out of work, he tried to re-energize the spinning and weaving industry in India by, first of all, just showing that it exists. So one of the things he did was he made a charka that was portable. Now, this in front of me is a typical Indian charka of the period, and you can see that's not terribly portable. So he introduced at least two contests with prizes. The first one, can someone make a charka that's 3 to 5 times faster? No one did. The second one was, how can one make that one that's portable? Well, the answer was, and it was a very clever answer, put it in a box. And here we have two box charkas, the largest of the family and the smallest. I have in my collection 6 of these, the largest and 4 sort of coming down to the smallest. So I know of at least 6 box charkas of this family. They're very clever. Now let's take one of these, the bigger one. This is the first, I believe this is the first one in the early 1920s. And I'll tell you why. What I've done to the charka, I've pretty much stuck with the original design, but I made it more user-friendly. The original ones, if you turn them over, everything would fall out. It was very much a job of assembly me now. I made it user-friendly. I have taken and I put in ball bearings on the accelerator wheel and ball bearings, and changed the mount for what I call the mouse trap. Everybody else, the mount for the bearing, because it's a mouse trap, because you let go of it, it snaps. So in my book, this is the mouse trap. So you take a belt to make a wheel that had the 110 to 1 ratio. In other words, you turn this once, the spindle turns 110 times. One needs an accelerator wheel, which is one of the clever things of this design. And when I put the bearings in here, I put it such that you could change the spindle without dismantling it. So, and I also added a functional lazy kate so that one can ply and wind off. Of course, in India, you never plied. Cotton was just used single fiber. So the changes I did mechanically were that. Now, where did I get this idea? In 1957, at Cornell, my parents ran a craft fair. And an Indian grad student at Cornell said, if you can find one of these, I'll demonstrate it. They had pictures at Cornell from a study of some rural villages, but no time to get one over here. So my father, a woodworker of fiber tools, made it from the photographs. My only help on that one, I was younger then, was making the bearings for the wheels. So this is the kind of wheel I learned to spin on in 1957. So this is my first experience at spinning. For cotton at that time, of course, there was no market, so we went around and took everybody's cotton out of their medicine bottles and reworked that into little ponies for the Indian guy to demonstrate. So he demonstrated this in August of 1957. So that was about 30 years after it was first developed. So much for history. What do we do? The Indian continent, of course, was warm, so all we ever had to do there was make single ply. So and I'm using a commercially provided cotton sliver for my source. And when I teach this, I say, think of it as 2 parts. You can't let the twist get back in the sliver because you can't cheat with your other hand and pull it out. So what you're making, in my theory, is very fine pencil roving, which has no strength here. And then pinch it off and add the twist. And then stop, back up, and wind on, as one has to do with any spindle wheel. One has to separate the spinning from the winding on process. So this is the whole point. This is what this device is. After your muscle memory gets going, you can do both episodes at once. So that's spinning. Now in our Western world, we spin other things other than cotton, like yak, kiviot, buffalo, silk blends, and other things where one wants to end up with a fine fiber, which by definition is high twist. The smaller, of course, the diameter, the more twists one needs per inch to make it work. So these wheels in our society now are used for many, many different fibers that like to be spun high twists, where on a traditional wheel would require an awful lot of treadling. So this wheel, I believe, is the answer for those that want to spin high twist fibers. So, but we demonstrated mostly with cotton. Now, this is the first one. It had 2 pockets. The second model had only 1 pocket. And then some of the others in the series had no pockets. But all the bigger ones have a way to wind off a skein winder built in. So we will say for the moment that the skein winder on the bigger ones can be just a cross, which one places on the accelerator wheel. And then there's a guidepost that guides the height. And then one can take, say, just 1 fiber for the moment to wind on. And here we can wind on right from the lazy cape within the unit. This lazy cape is not in the original ones, but it allows you to wind on. As you can see here, we're winding fiber, and that's as far as that one goes. But one can also, with this wheel, ply. So if I have 2 fibers here, and I wish to ply, I can. Now, the secondary belt, these wheels are such that you always turn clockwise. So you don't have to remember which way am I turning to get the S to the Z twist. So always clockwise. And if you're doing Z twists, the secondary belt from the top of the spindle pulley goes to the back. So as I was spinning Z twist this way, and now I want to go to S twist for plying, so I just take this belt and reverse it to the other side. Now, as I spin and as I turn, the spindle will be going the other way. Now, to be clumsy about this, I can demonstrate plying. Now, it has been discovered that if one takes the yarn around one's neck on a slippery shirt, that one can ply and wind on and ply. Now I'm doing something I'm going to tell you not to do, that ergonomically your shoulder is happier if it doesn't go above your head. So the school says you come out the side. So one needs to be careful about how high one goes. But there is using this for plying. So we have and this is the bigger one. We will now, to put it away, we'll just clean house later. One takes the spindles in the big one out of the lazy cape, lay down the mousetrap, for lack of a better name, line up the knob so the box will close, and we're ready to travel off. There's no assembly needed, which is part of the user-friendly. So, and then of course to start up again, one opens the box, takes out the spindles and reapplies the belt. Now one other thing we did when we made this wheel, traditionally Charka spindles come needle sharp. In fact, one of Gandhi's members who they were supposed to spin an hour a day in public to reinforce the idea of getting spinning. In his wheel, in his book, he says in one of these pockets among all his other tools, he had first aid supplies. So for when he drew blood off the spindles. So I said, and also he cautioned that if you go drawing the fiber across the sharp point would weaken the fiber as it turned and worked at the fiber. So I made the point round, which is kinder to the user and to the fibers. That which gave me another thought. Can you take this on an airplane? So I went down to Boston's local airport with one of these rounded spindles and one of the traditional pointed ones. I went 5 different TSA agents, and I asked them, would you let this on the airplane, this one or this one? And they all did the same thing. They did that. And the one that drew blood, they said no. And this rounded one, which didn't drew blood, they said they would on the airplane. So that's another reason to go to a rounded tip. Is so you can, I won't guarantee every time, but our local parlance, the rounded tip ones are safe, in quotes, for TSA. So this is the biggest one of the family. I would now say a few words about the little one. I'll leave that out. We don't need to put that back for the show and tell. And that's closing it up. Now the little one is the same idea, except you don't have to take the spindles out. They live in the lazy Kate. In that one, they get hit by the accelerator wheel. And again, one just needs to take the belt and put it there, and you're ready to start spinning. No muss, no fuss. Now this one also has another ergonomic feature. If you look at any picture, you see that a Charka is about the same height of where you're sitting. Or so the idea is your arm is down like this. On a kitchen table or dining table, your arm is up higher. It will be unhappy after a while, working up higher as opposed to down lower. So this one, and also the little one has a lever that'll lock it open so you can put it in your lap. And so you can have a laptop spinning wheel. If you go to a guild meeting and there's no spare room, you can just sit there without anything in front of you and just spin, or on an airplane or a boat or a bus, if we ever use them again, we can just spin in our lap. So this one is much simpler. We have concentrated on being user-friendly. And this is, we took their great idea of the accelerator wheel and the hinge box. And one thing else we did with the book one, in the Indian ones, this spindle mount is over on this corner. So the spindle sticks out in space. So many teachers say when you leave your Charka on the shelf, take the spindle out because it's dangerous to have it overhanging. This one, I moved the spindle mount inboard so that the spindle is within the frame of the box, making it, I think, safer. So those are the things we've done to make it more user-friendly. Now, we also have a boat shuttle that will allow you to take your sample, your spindle, and put it directly in the boat shuttle, and you can weave weft directly without rewinding on anything else. So this is not a new invention. This goes back to the very earliest spinning wheels in China, where they had shuttles that would hold the spindle. So I've just taken a shuttle shape, the 19th century boat shuttle that my father made, and modified the pocket to hold the spindle mount, the spindle directly. So we have here the charkas of various sizes, which are used here now for any fiber material where you want to end up with something with a fiber of, I guess you would call that lace weight. But this machine is for making this kind of fibers. Now this one is slower. This is only 70-1 because the wheels, of course, are smaller. And this is the 110-1 that Gandhi said was the correct ratio. I don't know where he got that number, but I guess he measured some of the big ones he had, which are that. So we recommend this wheel for any fine fibers, and we recommend it because it's user-friendly and you can spend your energies learning how to spin and not oiling and tweaking the parts of their Charka. The Indian one is a fine machine for the tools and the materials they have in hand, but we have ball bearings and things that aren't available in rural India, so I've taken advantage of that and have made this. So we have these devices which we recommend, and with the shuttle or just as they are. So we introduced this thing. When I also, along the line, put a treadle flyer spinning wheel in a box, which I made for a number of years. And then when I went full time at this, it became obvious I wanted to expand the line, so I remembered my father's box chart and copied that. So we introduced this in the beginning of the noughties, about the fall of 2000. I like the noughties because we had to have something for this first decade. And then we showed this, and I did this first because book charkers were being imported from India, so I didn't want to necessarily compete with that market. So I built this, and our customers said, "That's so nice, can't you make one book size?" So a year or so later, we went to a store meeting with one of these, actually this very one, to show and see if there was a market, do a market survey. And there seemed to be a market available for a premium book-size Charka. And we've made a large number of these since in the last 18 years. And I think we have increased the interest in spinning cotton and other fine fibers because you now have a user-friendly device that is made for fine fibers. Thank you for your interest. If you have any questions, I guess now is the time to ask them. Thank you for your interest.